sir, your divine thirst is laudable. I feel great love for you. Ram Gopal took my hand and led me to a quaint hamlet within a jungle clearing. The abode houses were covered with coconut leaves and rustically adorned over their entrances with fresh tropical flowers. The saint seated me on the umbrageous bamboo platform of his small cottage. After he had given me sweetened lime juice and a piece of rock candy, we entered his patio and assumed the lotus posture. 4 hours of meditation passed. I opened my eyes and saw that the moonlit figure of the yogi was still motionless. As I was sternly reminding my stomach that man does not live by bread alone, Ram Gopal rose from his seat. "I see you are famished," he said. "Food will be ready soon." He kindled a fire under a clay oven on the patio. In a short time we were eating rice and dal, served on large banana tree leaves. My host had courteously refused my aid in all cooking chores. The guest is God, a Hindu proverb, has commanded devout observance in India since time immemorial. In my later world travels, I was charmed to see that a similar respect for visitors is manifested in the rural sections of many countries. The city dweller finds the keen edge of hospitality blunted by a superabundance of strange faces. The marts of men seemed almost unimaginably remote as is squatted by the yogi in the isolation of the tiny jungle village. The cottage room was mysteriously lit with a mellow glow. Ram Gopal arranged some torn blankets on the floor for my bed and seated himself on a straw mat. Overwhelmed by his spiritual magnetism, I ventured a request. "Sir, why don't you grant me a samadhi?" "Dear one, I would be glad to convey the divine contact, but it is not my place to do so." The saint looked at me with half-closed eyes. "Your master will bestow that experience on you shortly. Your body is not tuned just yet, as a small lamp bulb would be shattered by excessive electrical voltage, so your nerves are unready for the cosmic current. If I gave you the infinite ecstasy right now, you would burn as though every cell were on fire." "You are asking illumination from me," the yogi continued musingly. "While I am wandering, inconsiderable as I am, and with the little meditation I have done, if I have succeeded in pleasing God, and what worth I may find in His eyes at the final reckoning." "Sir, have you not been single-heartedly seeking God for a long time?" "I have not done much. Bihari must have told you something of my life. For 20 years I occupied a secret grotto, meditating 18 hours a day. Then I moved to a more inaccessible cave and stayed there for 25 years, remaining in yoga union for 20 hours daily. I did not need sleep, for I was ever with God. My body was more rested by the complete calmness of superconsciousness than it could have been by the imperfect peace of the ordinary subconscious state. The muscles relax during sleep, but the heart, lungs, and circulatory system are constantly at work. They get no rest. In superconsciousness, all internal organs remain in a state of suspended animation, electrified by the cosmic energy. By such means I have found it unnecessary to sleep for years." He added, "The time will come when you too will dispense with sleep." "My goodness, you have meditated for so long and yet are unsure of the Lord's favor?" I remarked with astonishment. "Then what about us poor mortals?" "Well, don't you see, my dear boy, that God is eternity itself? To assume that one may fully know Him by 45 years of meditation is rather a preposterous expectation. Babaji assures us, however, that even a little meditation saves us from the dire fear of death and of after-death states. Do not fix your spiritual ideal on small mountains, but hitch it to the star of unqualified divine attainment. If you work hard, you will get there." Enthralled by the prospect, I asked him for further enlightening words. He related a wondrous story of his first meeting with Lahiri Mahasaya's Guru Babaji. Around midnight, Ram Gopal fell into silence and I lay down on my blankets. Closing my eyes, I saw flashes of lightning. The vast space within me was a chamber of molten light. I opened my eyes and observed the same dazzling radiance. The room became a part of the infinite vault that I was beholding with interior vision. The yogi said, "Why don't you go to sleep?" "Sir, how can I sleep when lightning is blazing around me, whether my eyes are shut or open?" "You are blessed to be having this experience. The spiritual radiations are not easily seen." The saint added a few words of affection. At dawn, Ram Gopal gave me rock candies and said I must depart. I felt such reluctance to bid him farewell that tears coursed down my cheeks. I will not let you go empty-handed, the yogi spoke tenderly. I will do something for you. He smiled and looked at me steadfastly. I became immobile, as though rooted to the ground. Vibrations of peace that emanated from the saint flooded my being. I was instantaneously healed of a pain in my back that had been troubling me intermittently for years. Renewed, bathed in a sea of luminous joy, I wept no more. After touching Ram Gopal's feet, I entered the jungle, making my way through its tropical tangle and over many paddy fields until I reached Tarakeshwar. I made a second pilgrimage to the famous shrine and prostrated myself fully before the altar. The round stone enlarged before my inner vision until it became the cosmical spheres, ring within ring, zone after zone, all dowered with divinity. I entrained happily an hour later for Calcutta. My travels ended not in the lofty mountains but in the Himalayan presence of my master.